I'm Cyclone, and today I wanted to take a look at how good can you make a Crimson Temple Apothecary farm, and can it compete with the God Touch Jungle Valley strategy? If you want to see the answer right now, skip ahead to the end of the video, there you will get the answer. If not, stick a while and listen. Now, the concept of the strategy is that we are looking to juice the Crimson Temple up as much as possible and try to get primary Apothecary cards, and then secondary still enable us to get a juiced up God Touch that then can drop between 20 and 30 divines or more if you have a lot of rarity and quantity on your gear. And as per usual, if you just want to have the compact information of this, go ahead in the description, go to my spreadsheet, 3.19 Crimson Temple. There's a detailed, a compact detailed saying what I used, and also a detailed overview of what I got. That being said, let's get into the video. Alright, one last thing before I actually get into the content. I was streaming 36 of the 48 maps live on Twitch, and I'm going to plan to stream more often in the future. So I will leave a link to my Twitch in the description. So if you're interested in watching me stream or just chat with me while I'm streaming, feel free to also follow me on Twitch, or just save the Twitch channel in your taskbar or on a desktop or anywhere, so that you can check up if I'm live. Also, I will post when I'm going live on my Discord. If you haven't joined yet, you can also chat with me over there. Now, let's actually get into the setup. The setup is very similar to the Jungle Valley farm. We are looking at Wandering Past Tree, having the 60% increased effectiveness of modifiers, having the monsters from Abyss, keeping the Abyss as the main source to push our Delirium bars, to fill our map with enemies. But in this case, we're not focusing as much on Legion. We're still taking all the stuff of Legion on the tree, but our main focus is not Legion. Our main focus is actually strong boxes. Strong boxes going to give us the most amount of quantity and to get our Apothecary card. So we're taking all the strongbox stuff on the tree. At the bottom to get get an additional pack guarding the strongbox, having chance to reopen the strongbox, and also having chance for the strongbox to be a diviner or a currency one, which is also quite nice to have. Lastly, we're also going to take the quantity wheel, the rarity wheel. We're going to go over the Harbinger to get additional juice from him, and we're going to take the Breach and the Legion stuff, as well as the Eat of World packs, so we have our map juiced to the brim with enemies. Now, instead of Einhar with the Jungle Valley strat, we need more points to fit all the strongbox stuff. So we're just going to take 3 points for the Alva, and we're going to use Alva on our maps. Which brings us to the way we want to run the map. The map is going to be run in a very simple way, but it's going to take quite a bit of time. So you're going to spawn in the map, you want to rush the boss, you want to kill the boss, because in the end we enable all our altars to be either a player debuff one with a generic duplication or an Eldritch Minion one. What we are seeking is 3 specific modifiers on the player one. We are looking for Divination duplication, currency duplication, and a generic quant size, which is also priority order of that. So we hoping to get an Apothecary drop and then dupe it, of course, to have the super value, the super profit. We are looking then to get the currency drop, so it's currency dupe. So when we get a God Touched, we have super profit from there, and then we take the generic quantity and rarity to improve our loot. By the way, we're also going to use those nodes to get a shrine per map, which is just a nice speed boost if we get the speed shrine. But the rest of the map is then going to be the altar, which is the shrine, which I just mentioned it now, is we want to keep the shrine for after this as well. We are now going to rerun the whole map once. So when you see a shrine, you can activate the shrine. When you see altars, you can activate the altars, but don't activate any Abyss, Legion, Breach, or Strong boxes yet. We want to clear the map, we want to activate all the altars, and now that we are done with that, we are going to start doing the league mechanics. So we're going to rush the boss, run the map once, and then run the map a second time, where we're now going to do the league mechanics. While doing breaches and abysses and the strong boxes, I do recommend looting a bit the most important stuff and noting in your head down, in this part of the map there's a lot of small stuff or a lot of uniques that you need to check. The Legion we are going to use, the Legion and the Breach, we can combine to just giving us a power boost when we loan Headhunter buffs. And the strong boxes we want to have our main focus on. In the Abyss and those small maps might sometimes bug a bit and don't drop a chest, but the chest isn't our main focus. It doesn't really give anything. Our main goal is the enemies from the Abyss himself. That much for the running map. So what are we going to use to juice our maps up? Well, we are going to mainly focus on the Divination. It's on the Apothecary. So we want a ringed Divination Scarab. We are also going to use a ringed Reliquary Scarab so that we get the God Touch. They are juiced a lot. Then we're going to use ringed Abyss and ringed Ambush to give our map the most amount of enemies possible in a setup that is in a way that we don't get damaged returns by having a really closed map layout. Then we're going to use an additional Abyss and additional Legion Sextant, which allows us to just fill more enemies with more the map with more enemies. And we're going to use the Enraged Strongbox and Elevated Strongbox Sextant. The reason why we are not only using elevated strongboxes and not any other elevated sextant is the price point. Legion, it makes no difference to use a lower or higher one, it's just more expensive to use an elevated one. Elevated Abyss, while it is definitely powerful, giving us an additional Abyss, which is then also affected by the ringed Abyss Scarab, the price difference between one Abyss and two Abyss is just not worth it. And the same goes for the Enraged Strongboxes. While 100 quantity is nothing to scoff at, having the price difference between not using an Enraged Strongbox and using it is worth it, but the 100 quantity is too much of a price jump to be worth it in my opinion. While just the normal elevated strongbox is worth it. It's an additional strongbox which is affected by the 500 quantity, and the price difference between normal and elevated isn't too much. We are still going to roll our maps for increased rare monsters, by the way, because we're still hunting the God Touch as a secondary goal. We're going to use Delirium Orb, 20 to 60% based on what your character can run. However, I used a Divination or Diviner Delirium Orbs. I think using Skittering is the best call. I just wanted to try out the Diviners, so I noted them down here. They were definitely good, but they were not as good as Skittering ones. This is just my personal recommendation. And we're going to use Ambush on the map device, and Alva is our master. Now, as I already mentioned, you do want to have some magic finding. In my case, I had 30 quantity and 342 rarity placed all over my gear. I think I didn't have a proper setup, but I think it was good enough for this. I think you want a lot more quantity, so you want a Greed Embrace on the body armor, you want to have maybe the quantity shield and be a kinetic blast build, you could also use the quantity on your boots or the quantity on the gloves, you could also use the ascetic amulet. There's a lot more quantity you can get from your gear, but this is really just how much can you push and can your character still complete the map in that case? And in my case, I wasn't able to put more quantity or rarity on my gear without risking ripping the map. So this map was what I was running. It was okay, but I definitely recommend the strategy. If you have more, the more rarity and the more quantity you have, the better it's going to be. There's an overview of the rarity. If you want to give a read into that, you can pause for a moment. I'm not going to be going into the detailed what every item has and how exactly it was rolled. Alright. Now, the cost of all the setup for me was 75 divines, but I used a tiny trick, which I will come to in a moment, to save 4 divines of cost. I actually saved a bit more, but I will come to that as well in the moment, which is now. So, I tried to minimize my expenses by buying smaller stacks, which meant I spent more time buying them. So it's really a question of what you value more, your time or the currency that you have. So if you don't have enough currency, You should also, by the way, recommend to first go for the Jungle Valley farm, which is going to be more consistent in the rewarding part. But if you, in this case, I try to minimize the time, minimize the currency spent because I still had enough time on hands. I bought Delirium Orbs in stack size of 4 to 5, being 1 divine for a specific amount of Delirium Orbs, and I looked for a seller that was asking for the same price as small stuff, but had a big bulk, a big amount of stuff to sell, so I was able to buy in bulk while paying the non-bulk price basically. Was also looking to buy the Scarabs in stacks of 5 or 10, depending on the value. For example, Divination and Reliquary I bought in stacks of 5, while Abyss and Abyss and Ambush I bought in stacks of 10. The Sextants I bought in single amounts, but I bought, when I found somebody would like how many, I tried to look for as many as possible, but doing the same thing with the Delirium Orbs, paying the non-bulk price to get bulk. Lastly, something that I was able to do because I was running a lot of Ironheart in my previous strategies was that I was able to buy Ferric Fossilian Alphas for 20C and then have all the yellow beasts and upgrade Gilded Scarabs to Winged Scarabs. It took me about 20 minutes to upgrade 48 Scarabs of each kind, and I saved about 10C per Scarab, which with about 200 Scarabs is about 2k chaos. Keep in mind though that in my case I had all the yellow beasts already saved and didn't have to buy them. If you have to buy the yellow beasts, this is not going to be worth it. It's going to take too much time. If you're just buying the Ferric Frostfield and Alphas and you have a Headhunter, takes no time, is no risk, and actually is quite funny to just stand in the middle, shoot with your tornado shot, the beasts come in, the beasts die, you get your Scarab, and just repeat the process as fast as possible. But now, with all this in mind, let's take a look at what profits I made from what part of the strategy. Now this looks bad, but let me explain. We spent about 43 divines in our whole setup, and I look to try to get the whole setup like with the Jungle Valley even on just the Delirium Orbs, because then that means everything after that I get dropped is pure profit. With this case, with the Diviner Delirium Orbs, I wasn't able to. I got about 1.5k Delirium Orbs, which were about 20 divines worth, but I spent 43 divines on the map device, on the Scarabs, on the Sextants, and on the Delirium Orbs. So I was losing 23 divines in just Delirium Orbs profit, which I think I could have minimized a bit more with skittering, which is why I recommend over skittering. But I made profit overall with other stuff, and let's take a look at that. I've got 9 Dragon's Heart, 5 Enlightened, 1 7 Years Bad Luck, and 1 Apothecary. So that is a pretty good rate, and I got the Apothecary very, very early on in my strategies, which made me hope that I would be able to get more than 1 Apothecary in 48 maps, which sadly wasn't the case. This strategy is really a high risk, high reward strategy because you are really just seeking the Apothecary, and if you get it, you're going to make a lot of profit, and if you don't get it, your profit is going to be minimal. And in this case, with the Divination cards, we spent about 10 divines for the Winged Divination Scarabs, and we got about 70 divines of profit in cards, on top of 28 divines profit from the God Touched hunting. We spent 14.64 divines from them, and we got about 4.8 divines in Exalted Orb, 37 raw divines, and 0.8 divines in annulments. And by the way, I counted the number of God Touched I had, comparing them to Jungle Valley. In Jungle Valley we had about 1 and 2 God Touched, 1 God Touched every 2 maps, and now we had 1 God Touched every 3 maps. So not having as many legions, and having the legions in this, if we have them in this compact packed layout, it definitely does hurt, but still 1 in 3 is in K rate, with them being 1 in 3 again being a currency touch. That means we have 1 currency touch per 9 maps, which isn't too bad. I mean, on average. So totaling our profits, we're looking at about 96 divines in profit and still having a few uniques that hadn't sold at that time. For example, I had a Perfect World Ascetics that hadn't sold, but still, it's pretty amazing to have that, because I could have just used that to further amplify the strategy. So this strategy is definitely very profitable, but it does really rely on the Apothecary. In this case, as you can see, I have 96 divines profit, and if you consider not having the Apothecary, it would only be 36 divines profit. So if we say my other strategy is the Jungle Valley one, the very high level, very high investment level, made me 90 divines profit, and I still hadn't sold everything. And here I got 96 profit with having sold almost everything except those few uniques, means that the Jungle Valley one is going to be a lot more stable and with the same amount of results, where this one is going to be a huge gamble on the Apothecary cards. But if you get a duped Apothecary or get above average rate of Apothecary drops, suddenly the profit of this one is going to be way more and way better, which I find pretty amazing in the sense of, if a lucky person tries this, his profit is going to be into oblivion. If an unlucky person tries this, he could have just farmed Legion on Breach on Dooms, which is a bit of sad, but I guess that's luck. Now, one last thing that I found interesting in this is that if we took on the left is a screenshot of my net worth of the currency tabs and the stash tabs, like the currency tab, the dump tab, and the tab for Scarabs and other stuff. It's about 170 divines. If I took out all the small stuff, all the stuff that I didn't want to sell, like the Ironheart Sacred Growth Memory, the Patient, the Redeemer map, and the 2 Elder Slayer maps, as well as the Screaming Invitation and some other stuff, and then I sold everything else except what you saw in the screenshot there, I was able to have a higher worth of the tab than before, which is something that is very unusual. Normally, when Excellence tab, the small stuff inflates the value of the tabs very easily. But somehow with this, with the stick decks and the uniques and everything, you were able to have worth more in the tab when taking all the small stuff and selling the big stuff. Which, it was just a funny thing I wanted to mention. Lastly, what I learned in this strategy and what I would recommend is, I learned that Alva can contain God Touch, and I would recommend doing this with 2 players. With party play, with all 3 players, 4 players, 5 players. And I think if you do this with a group, and you're just looking for the big drops, this is going to be a lot more rewardable than what I did right now in my 48 sets. So it's going to be definitely worse in that case, because you can fit way more quantity and rarity. If you're solo, I think if you're just looking for profit, run the Jungle Valleys with a very high investment setup with a similar rarity and quantity that I have, and you're going to have a better result on average. Now again, it can be lucky, can be not so lucky, so it can vary, but overall I would say that is what I recommend. Now, hopefully this was able to help you decide if you want to farm Apothecary or if you want to farm God Touched mainly, and if so, wonderful. If not, I'm sorry that I wasn't able to help more. All that being said, if you watched till now, I would really appreciate if you could leave a like. And with that being said, have a wonderful day and goodbye.